Hey RBC, it's Pastor Brian and
Pastor Mark.
And we're excited to be here sharing with you a little bit about what's about to happen. So in the life of our church, what we're about to do is move into the season where we're asking all of our people to give their sacrificial gift. And it's actually in two stages. So what we wanted to do today was to point out some of the things that you need to know before you participate in the offering on November the 11th. So we're going to refer to the book here on page 15 of your campaign brochure. I want to make sure that you've read all of these financial details on how to give. And even though you may already say, I already know how to give, there are some unique differences in giving towards the campaign. Now, so when we tithe, all of our tithes go into a separate account. It's physically a separate banking account. So that goes into that account. That pays for all the operational expenses of the church. When we build a building and we raise funds for that, that goes into a separate account. And that account, even if I had $10 million sitting in my tithe account, we wouldn't use that to build a building. So those are two separate accounts, and so we want to make sure that you understand that when you give, that you're channeling or designating that this money is going into this account. Now, it's first you need to understand there's two of those accounts, and so I find that often people during a campaign, this is like our fifth time to do a campaign, they get that mixed up. So what's some common things that people do that sometimes makes your world a little more difficult?
Well, a lot of times they'll just give one check and they think that we know exactly how much they wanted to go to the building program. So that makes it a little confusing. Or even if they put it on the envelope, they don't even put their name on the envelope, or they put just their last name on the envelope. And believe it or not, we have more than one family with the name of Smith in the church. So, and we want to make sure you get credit. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
this gift is from Bob.
Exactly. So if you're going to use the envelope system, make sure you clearly put your name on it, and first and last name, so we can get the right family attributed to that pledge. In addition, if you are giving, make sure you mark on the envelope the Dream Vision Fund. It's the second line down, so make sure you mark that as Dream Vision Fund. If you really like the counters, what makes their life easier is one check for your tithe, and then one check specifically marked Dream Vision Fund.
Yeah, if you're giving by check, I would say that's probably the biggest mistake that people make is they say, well, what I'll do is I'll just write my standard check and I'll just put in the memo field, that, $5 of this is build a dream. I hope that's not what it is, but they'll just say that. But that's almost impossible to really track. And the number of transactions that you guys process in your team is literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And it's used by volunteers that participate in that team to get all that stuff entered. So it's pretty easy to not sit there and examine every little, jot and tittle of a check that's processed. I think you even use like a scanner or something.
Yeah, we use a scanner that grabs the micro and it brings it up. So
micro, see, that's a technical word, okay? And so it's very important. I think the easiest, the most significant way to make sure that the gifts go to the right place is two separate checks if you're going to use a check. Right. If you're going to use cash, then you want to make sure that cash goes in the envelope. If you just throw is there such a thing as $1 million bill? Let's pretend there is.
Let's pretend. I'd love to see one.
If you threw a $1 million bill in the offering plate, guess where it's going? Where's that going?
Just throw it in the plate.
Throw it in the plate.
It's just going to go to the operating fund.
Yep, it's going to the tithe fund. So we can't build a building with it.
Right.
It's going right in the tithe fund. Pastor Brian's getting a big raise, okay? So you don't want that, right? So what we want to make sure is that you designate your gifts. So that's what we mean by designate. Make sure that you distinguish between your tithe and your build a dream. Now,
let me add one more thing to that. As we talk about checks, because a lot of you use the banking system. I think bill pay. I think.
That's great.
And a lot of times, every check is different from a different bank, so it's really hard for a counter to kind of figure it out. Now, what people have done is a lot of people in the memo have put Dream Fund or tithe, and that works great. So if you can work with your bank to give one check just to the Dream Fund. Or build the dream, and one to tithes and offering. That works great because I love bill pay, but every check is different from a bank. So the counters have to kind of look at every check a little different to figure out what that memo field says.
So don't combine it even if you do the electronic ACH transaction from your bank to where it sends us a check in the mail. Make sure you still designate those in two different checks electronically. You can do that. Now I use PushPay. and that's very convenient, very simple. And so even on PushPay, there's different pull-down menu, and you can set those up. I've got both of mine on a repeating, recurring schedule, so that my tithe and then my Build a Dream both are separate, recurring entities on my PushPay. So however you do that, make sure you're aware there are 2 different accounts, and make sure that you're designating your Build a Dream gifts to the Build a Dream Fund, or AKA the Dream Vision Fund, either way. Now on November the 11th, in our campaigns, we do one more thing just to make life complicated. we are going to bring our very best cash gift. That's the sacrificial gift. We prayerfully ask God, what can I do to give above and beyond my tithe to that cash offering? And then we ask people to do a 3-year pledge. Now, in your book, there is a typo, but that's okay. It's only an illustration. This card will be available on that day, on November the 11th, for the 3-year pledge. And the way this works is you're saying that I'm going to, in addition to the cash gift, I'm going to also give over a 3-year time period. Now, honestly, it doesn't matter how you do that. It could be once a year. My recommendation has always been, for many folks, they don't have a lot of disposable income, use your tax return and just say, you know what, I'm going to give my tax return over the next 3 years. I'm just going to go ahead, because that's money I didn't have. I'm going to go ahead and just say, I'm giving that to God. That is a huge way that you can do that. But it doesn't matter. There's multiple ways in here that you can say, I'm going to give this much per week times 156 weeks. Or I'm going to give this much a month for 36 months. Or I'm going to give this one time a year, 3 times over 3 years. I'm going to do some other amount. We've had several folks that they would say, well, I know that next year I'm going to get this income, and so I'm going to designate and just give that income. Honestly, all of this, is between you and God. I mean, there's no guilt here. If you feel the slightest hesitation of, I don't want to give, or I don't like this, or, I'm feeling if you feel it even slightly, don't do that. I consider it a joy to invest in the dream and the vision of this church, because what I know is that people's lives have been changed for all of eternity because of what we do. And I know that there is no better investment on planet Earth than to invest in the kingdom of God when God is doing His work through His church. So what else would we need to know before we come into this Sunday?
I think just knowing all the different ways to give, because a lot of people have given so many different ways, and I think one of the new ways is the text feature that we have this year.
Oh, wow. So tell me about that.
On the text, if you just text the number 77977 and use the word ORBC BTD, it'll bring up a screen that you just go right to it, and it clicks, and whatever you put in there goes straight to the Build the Dream.
Super cool. Text to give. I love it. I love it. Yeah, we have not had that before.
No, this is the first year that we've used that. We've tested it, and yes, it works on both Apple and finally on Android. Yes.
Oh, well, careful. So this is so cool. So please make sure you read through each of these, the steps, the ways that you can give, and then join us on Wednesday after the offering on the 11th. Wednesday the 14th, we're going to have a huge celebration. We're going to have worship and baptisms, celebrate Home Run Heroes, a few surprises that I'm not going to tell you about yet. And then we're going to also reveal all that God's people both gave in cash and in pledges towards the next phase of the dream. So it's going to be an awesome time. Anything else?
Yeah, just to add too, if you're out of town, you can still participate. We've had people knowing that they're already out of town. They brought their gift, one-time gift in already. If you're out of town, use one of these other features, because that Build a Dream is set up ready to give now to it. So feel free, if you're out of town, still participate. And if you get back by Wednesday, join in, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. So if they say, well, I was going to give $1 million, but I'm not going to be there on the 11th.
Exactly.
So, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We will take it on the 18th.
We take it too. But make sure it marked Build the Dream.
Amen. So make sure you designate. But hey, it's going to be awesome. We're excited about it. I know God's going to show up in a miraculous way. No matter what else happens, my heart is the most happy when all of God's people are doing their part. And by the way, don't do the math. Every year somebody comes up and says, Pastor Brian, I did the math, and based on the number of people, that's a lot of money, and I don't know if we're going to make it. And every single time I laugh, because it's not a math thing, it's a miracle thing. It's never about the math. As long as you do what God calls you to do, and I do what God calls me to do, and you do, as long as we all do that, let God do His thing. Kind of that Luke formula when Jesus said, give, and it should be given unto you abundantly, pressed down, shaking, overflowing more than you could have imagined. That's the God factor. So that's what we're looking for in this campaign. So, all right, we'll see you then.
Yep, likewise.
God bless.